So folks, let's talk a little bit more about narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is basically the air that the narcissistic person breathes, where like in life, regular or healthier folks may value connection, depth, empathy, or compassion in their relationships. However, for narcissistic folks, all relationships are transactional, and the currency that's used in these transactions is supply. Narcissistic parents turn to their children for supply. Narcissistic partners are attracted to you, at least initially, because of your supply. Narcissistic bosses get supply being in charge, from the perks of the office, the salary. Narcissistic people cheat because it gives them new supply. It's all about supply. The tricky piece about narcissistic supply is that while there are universals, praise, winning, money, being in power, validation, the things that may be associated with that may vary, and it will be relative. For one person, supply may be their name on a big billboard. For another, it may be a massive raise. For another, it may be a tryst with someone that they meet at the gym. You get the picture. Narcissistic supply helps narcissistic people feel safe because they feel in control, in power, and they're getting the validation and admiration that they desperately need. And while they have it, they have supply, they actually can seem like nice people, relatively well-regulated. A well-supplied narcissist may even seem moderately empathic. A well-supplied narcissistic person is confusing as hell because in that moment, when they're being nicer, you may wonder if you were reading it wrong. Or if it's early days in the relationship, you may actually feel like you hit the jackpot. This person's charismatic and charming and attractive and nice. You feel like this is the Powerball prize of human beings. But no narcissistic person will ever be able to get enough supply. Even if things are going really well for a really long time, lots of money and adoration and admiration and sex and power, whatever, it's never enough. And for narcissistic people, supply gets stale. So there's always someone new they need supply for. There's always someone sneaking up on the inside track who may be giving them more supply. And interestingly, and I've been studying this narcissism stuff since actually before social media became a thing, social media muddied the waters. Because now the narcissistic folks who once were somewhat sort of pretty secure in their well-supplied lives, because before social media, then for the narcissists, everyone was kind of giving them their way and kind of walking on eggshells and praising them. Now those narcissistic folks could now see that, oh, there's some people out there who have more stuff than me. And that sense that someone has more or better life than you, even when the narcissistic person has more than enough, it makes them livid, right? But it can also help to understand, as you navigate these relationships, that there are basically sort of two kinds of narcissistic supply. It's important to understand how these work. Most of the time when we talk about narcissistic supply, we're talking about primary supply. This is the supply that goes direct to them. A compliment, praise, money, promotion, they win at something, they get lots of social media likes. It is visibly clear that the validation's for them and they're doing better than other people and are directly being told, you're great, you have the most, you win. And in the short term, narcissistic people love this primary supply. As a kid, you may remember the few days when the narcissistic parent came home from work happy, or they were just in a great mood. And you wouldn't have quite gotten this understood this as a kid, but it might have been because the narcissistic parent sort of won that day. Maybe they closed the sale or got the bonus or won the election, or someone in the grocery store told them that they were attractive or hit on them. Who knows what it is? But it was a clear and linear award for that parent. And so when that parent came home, they had a lilt in their step, and they might have even been a really fun dream parent for a few hours. But since narcissistic people most of the time are malcontents, that little honeymoon often wouldn't last long. And before you know it, something will happen to a narcissistic person that leaves them feeling that people are out to get them, and then their dark moods would come back. There is never enough primary narcissistic supply. And you may find that no matter how much you praise them or that things go their way, it's never enough. And that is why you see these boom and bust cycles with narcissistic folks. Up periods, up days, down days, happy days, glum days. And all of this seems to turn on a dime because ultimately nobody and nothing is ever going to be enough. They're always chasing more supply. But we don't talk enough about secondary supply. And here is where it gets a bit trickier. Secondary supply is not direct to narcissist. It's coming through an indirect pathway. Some examples of secondary supply are, for example, the narcissistic person who comes from a powerful or rich or connected family. So they can ride on the coattails of their last name. They can get restaurant reservations or free stuff or VIP status on the power of their last name or their family's power or connections. Or it could be that they work at a prestigious company or went to a really prestigious university. So they get mileage out of that pedigree and talk about it as often as possible. One sort of particularly kind of fun drinking game, I don't drink, so I guess in my case eating game, was a group of us knew who went to Harvard years ago and would bring it into the conversation even though it was completely unrelated to what was being discussed. And the game we played was if they mentioned Harvard in the first 5 minutes, I guess some of them were taking a shot, I would eat more. The drinkers drank, I ate, you get the idea. If I spent too much person on this person, I was going to get more overweight than I already am. Other examples of secondary supply are when the narcissistic person's partner brings some cachet or juice. The narcissistic person's partner may be much younger or really attractive or wealthy or successful or famous or have a big job or be well connected. Another example would be that the narcissistic person's child or children are very successful either as children or as adults. So for example, they might have been athletes or really great students in childhood or in adulthood, go on to become renowned or wealthy. The praise, the admiration, the power, the validation, it's not coming direct to the narcissist. It's coming through something they are close to or part of, like family or a partner or a place of work. Secondary supply, as I'm sure you're already thinking this, is tricky. Because ultimately, the narcissistic person will always get to a point where they resent the secondary supply. For short bursts, it's great for them, right? They get that entitled VIP status they crave. They're treated as special because they're part of a privileged system or partnership or family, and they're getting attention because of the person or organization that they're affiliated with. Again, you're smart. You know where this is going. But because ultimately, secondary supply makes narcissistic people very bitter. Because of the hypersensitive, almost paranoid, the fancy clinical word we use for this is persecutory ideation, but the constant sense of interpersonal threat that narcissistic people have, that people are out to get them. They know at some level all this VIP-ness, it's not really for them. Narcissistic people, for all of their lack of empathy, are incredibly socially perceptive. So for them being in the second chair or lapping up the primary supply that someone else is getting, while they like the proximity to the VIP-ness, it wears on them that it's not really for them, and it wears on them fast. Narcissistic people from powerful or wealthy or connected families, you'll often see that they have failure to launch. They'll get stuck because they're not going to succeed at the level that their family or the patriarch or whomever has. But yet at some level they feel the success is owed to them. And they sense the sort of nepo jeers that are coming at them, as though they know this special status was not earned and everyone knows it. So what do? They take their power back by snapping at people around them who don't have much power, like the person who is valet parking their car or the server in the restaurant or someone else who has very little power. Those of you who watch Succession, think about how Tom constantly humiliated cousin Greg. It's a great example of that. When the narcissistic person is getting their secondary supply through the success or beauty or fame of a partner, ultimately that's never going to work, right? The narcissistic person gets jealous and sulky, and they sullenly sit at home and know that they're just the ride along. And invariably, they do messed up stuff to get their power back, like cheat with someone who has very little power so they can feel big, or they misappropriate family finances they feel entitled to, right? Secondary supply narcissists do a lot of the woe is me victimized nonsense, and it is exhausting. And the person in the relationship who's actually maybe the one who's the recipient of a lot of praise or power or whatever, might even do all they can to pump up the narcissist, give them job opportunities, introduce them to powerful people, give them big jobs that they could have never earned on their own, tell them they're great, let them be the manager of their career. Big mistake, by the way. So the narcissistic person can feel like they're putting on their big boy pants, right? The worst of this may be when the narcissistic person drinks up the secondary supply of their children. In childhood, this can actually look to the world like the devoted parent sitting in the stands at the cold games, and everyone knows that they are the star quarterback, pitcher, goalie, swimmer's parent. And that parent gets praised as much as the kid might, even though it's the kid out there who's playing the game. This can even happen with the musician kid, the ballet kid, the performing stage kid, all good. But many of us don't see what happens behind closed doors unless it's happened to you, where the parent may berate that high-performing kid for not being better, for missing the shot, and in some ways leaving the kid feeling like, aren't you lucky you are succeeding? And may even point out to the kid that the coaching that the parent pays for, et cetera, is why that kid is doing well, rather than the kid's actual ability. Or the parent may push the kid way too hard, even after a long day of school and practices, and the parent may also play victim. Well, if I had all of that, I would have been one of the great ones. The kid may be confused and may even feel that they have to win to be loved. All of this can trail into adulthood, and here it may go beyond being the star on the team, but rather the child may in adulthood go on into professional or financial success, and the parent may get to drink it up, being a guest in the adult child's sumptuous home, or being taken on vacation and enjoying all the perks, but then still poking at the kid. Yeah, well, it's easier to make a dime now than in my time, and boy, do you spend it in some weird ways. There is a bitterness that pervades the narcissistic person who is getting secondary supply. They may gorge themselves at the VIP banquet table that they get to sit at, but then complain about it. And their negative energy can be a real downer for everybody involved. The narcissistic person who gets secondary supply resents the people around them who are the ones who are being validated and praised and successful. And even though the secondary supply makes the narcissistic person's life possible or easier, so it creates this constant cycle of shame, resentment, lashing out at people, acting out, more shame, and always knowing and always suspecting that everyone can actually see that they are not the main event. And this happens at work too. People being on a winning team, for example, because one person did all the work. And everyone knows it, that team was a winning team because of that one person. And the narcissistic person may crave being that person, but they're still getting the goodies and the money because of the team being so successful, right? So the narcissistic person will take the perks, the money, the goodies, whatever they are, but may again continue to keep throwing the passive-aggressive barbs. And it may be that the narcissistic person has that fancy job at the fancy company and brags about it, or has the degree from the fancy university, but they may actually not be thriving or excelling, and there's a constant dissonance and tension. I should be happy to work at this super duper company. I hate this job, but people think I'm cool because I work here. So they go back and forth. And that backing and forthing and that chronic tension often comes out as rage and pettiness and general ick, but yet everyone's looking around them saying like, you got it made, like, woo, this is a lot. Narcissistic people at their deep, unprocessed, inaccessible core are insecure, afraid of rejection or criticism or abandonment, and use grandiose defenses like entitlement to help them go through the world. Their motivator is power, domination, and control, and they want that so they can feel safe and have a hedge against all that insecurity and shame. It's sad, I know, but they also don't do the work on it. As a result, their entitlement gets bolstered through this secondary supply by being from the fancy family or being with the fancy partner or having the successful kids or working in the fancy place. But at that deep, unprocessed level, they know it's tenuous because they want to be the star attraction and they aren't. At some deep level, they know they aren't as skilled or smart or talented as the source of the primary supply. The people who are getting the primary supply, so the source of the secondary supply to them, which means that their lives are often lived in sour resentment. And for this reason, you may wonder, damn, this person has everything going for them. They have resources or a successful spouse or a family that gave them a major leg up or family money or big fancy degree or big fancy job, and they're such a mean, manipulative, icky person. What more do they want? And the answer is they want everything because it's never enough. Hope that makes supply more clear, and thanks again.